shot at? And they said no. And there's a reason they haven't been shot at. But I guarantee you, Border Patrol has. And I also was up in one of the helicopters, and we were going along the Rio Grande, and we saw Border Patrol actually locate about 10 to 15 illegals who had just crossed over. And they were looking in the sugar cane, they couldn't find them all. And our helicopter had an infrared on it, and they were calling down helping Border Patrol find these people. So our equipment, that was the second observation, our equipment's better than the federal equipment.
Of course.
So there's clearly more that can be done. And we, in Texas, obviously, Governor Perry made a good move in putting National Guard, Texas National Guard on the border. We're spending lots of money. We've spent almost $500 million, according to Perry, on reinforcing what's going on down there. We're also doing everything we can to enforce our laws as it relates to drug trafficking and cartels and human trafficking. But it's clear that the federal government needs to do more. A couple of examples, just in the last few weeks, with that 9-year-old Maggie Parker County, who was molested and sexually abused by somebody who had been deported several times. And then just this weekend, a Border Patrol agent was shot while fishing with his family. And I think until the federal government gets serious about this issue, we're going to see more and more of these type of cases. Well, I know that not everybody's from Texas, but I want to answer a question about why Texas is so critical, in my opinion, for what's going on, not just in Texas, but the nation. I'm going to take you back to when I was in law school at the University of Virginia, founded by Thomas Jefferson. And I remember sitting in my first constitutional class with a pretty liberal professor from Yale, who was teaching us that the Constitution was a living and breathing document that should be interpreted in light of today's cultural norms and values, not as the founder meant. Well, that was bad enough. And then one of my very smart classmates, who was in my class, asked the professor, why don't we ever talk about the 10th Amendment? And his answer, much to my surprise, and the surprise of most everybody in the class, was, because it's irrelevant. Shocking. But at that time, almost true, because no states were asserting it in their defense of states' rights. And what's been amazing, I've been in the Texas legislature for 12 years. And when I first got there, we had our first Republican majority in Texas in the Texas House. And we focused on state issues and state law. And as soon as Obama came into office, that changed. We started focusing on federal issues and dealing with the federal government at every turn. And what also changed was Republican attorneys general around the country, particularly in Texas, recognized the threat and fighting back with the 10th Amendment. So I want you to know, for all the time that Obama's been in office, I've been trying to find something that he's contributed good to our country, and now I found that he's at least forced us to assert the 10th Amendment. Texas has clearly been under assault, just as much of the rest of the nation. And particularly in Texas, there's two areas where we have been under assault. One is economic. I think part of that is because it's difficult to understand why the federal government's come in here and tried to impact our oil and gas industry, while they've done it with our coal industry, our fishing, our farming. Almost, if I go around the state, as I have, there's almost not a day that goes by that I don't talk to business owners that are concerned about the federal government intruding on their business and making it more difficult for them to be profitable. And the question is, why are they doing that? And I think the answer is simple. We've been successful. We've actually run our state with lower taxes and less regulation. And Democratic states that have done the opposite are struggling and losing jobs to states that have not done it. As a result, we've been under assault. I'll give you an example. I have a constituent that paid almost $3-4 million in taxes over a 3-year period. The IRS came in and said he had underpaid by $400,000. He wrote a check for $400,000. He paid restitution of $400,000, and he paid interest and penalties of about $400,000. And the IRS still prosecuted him and tried to put him in jail. And he actually pled guilty. And I asked him why, because I sat there when he was sentenced by the federal judge, who went after the IRS and said, "What are you all doing? This guy's paid over $4 million in taxes, and you're trying to put him into prison. It doesn't make any sense." And the guy that I knew said, "I had to do it because this is a family business. I employ over 100 people. I would have bankrupted my company defending myself. And so I took the hit." so he's a convicted felon. The judge gave him community service when the IRS asked for prison time. And that, according to the judge, I went back and talked to him. He said that was as little as he went outside of the guidelines, and he gave as little as he could. Those are the types of things that are going on in our state and our country. And then, as you know, you're very familiar, we're under political assault. We're under political assault because if they can turn Texas blue, they'll control all federal offices. And that's why issues like voter ID are so critical that we win those fights. Several years ago in Texas, we passed a voter ID law, very simple. Show your photo ID, you get to vote. You can use your driver's license, you can use a military ID, you can use a passport. We'll even issue you in Texas free ID if you keep your votes. And we were sued by Eric Holder. Went all the way to the U.S. Court of Appeals, and we lost. And let me give you a little background. I'll tell you why we lost. We are subject in Texas, we're one of 9 states subject to the Voting Rights Act. We were put under in the 70s. The original 6 states were put under for discriminating. We were put under because we had a high percentage of non-English speaking people, along with Alaska and Arizona. And the burden of proof changes when you're under the Voting Rights Act. Instead of the Justice Department having to prove that you discriminated, you now have to prove that you didn't discriminate. You have to prove the negative, which is nearly impossible. And so we lost. And the Court of Appeals said, you're discriminating, Texas, not because you didn't offer an ID, but because it costs money to drive to get your ID.
Oh my goodness.
And our voter ID was struck down. Now, fortunately, the Supreme Court, a few months later, heard the Shelby case, and they struck down part of the Voting Rights Act, which took us out. And we were able to implement voter ID last November with constitutional amendments. We were able to implement it in the primary. And the arguments that the Democrats and the Obama administration made was that voter ID would cause all kinds of problems logistically, and it would suppress the vote. And guess what? 3 elections, turnout went up. But is that the end of the story? No. Texas is being sued again. We're being sued under a different section of the Voting Rights Act, with the Obama administration trying to put us back under that owner's burden where all of our election laws are controlled by the federal government. And if we lose that, they control all of our election law, which includes redistricting and how we draw our lines, which ultimately affects the makeup of the legislature and public policy in Texas, and how long we can remain Republican states. And so these are critical issues. So as I kind of conclude here, I want to talk a little bit about where we're at. I know there's a lot of tension, a lot of frustration with the Obama administration. But I also think people like us have an opportunity, a historic opportunity. If you look at our founders and what they were up against the British Empire, no one thought they could win. If you look at the Greatest Generation and what they did when 2 huge wars in 2 different parts of the world when they were not prepared to do so, it was amazing. And I think we have that opportunity. When Obama ran for the first time in my district, I had about an 80% Republican district. And I remember telling people in my district 6 months before Obama was elected, I said, you know what, we have to all quit our jobs and go off and make sure that we elect a Republican president. Because the 6 months of income that we lose is going to be less than what we're going to lose if Obama's elected.
Okay.
Now, I didn't quit. None of my friends quit. And look what happened. I want you to know, for the last year and a half, I've been campaigning around the state. I've left my job, I've been away from my family, because I'm all in. And I'm asking you all to be all in, because we're at that point in our history.
That's right.
Where we have to be all in, or we're going to lose it all.
Amen.
That's the thing.
So I got to close just with my race. You're told all the professionals, all the consultants, never to mention your opponent's name. But I feel pretty good about this crowd. If you guys would vote Republican, no matter whether you know his name or not. So for those of you who don't know, anybody know who I'm running against? Sam Houston. Now, for those of you who don't know who Sam Houston is, Sam Houston, the Tennessee governor, came to Texas to be the first president of the Republic of Texas, and then became one of the first Texas governors. And for those of you who are from out of state, a lot of the in-staters will know this, but we have a kind of history in Texas of, frankly, dead Democrats voting.
Yeah.
But this is the first time they've actually run one. So I want to close by saying thank you for being here, thank you for caring, and let's all be all. Thank you very much. I'm happy to answer a few questions if I don't know if there are any. Good.
Hi, Ken.
Hi.
Welcome to Fort Worth.
Thank you. Good to be here. My wife's from here, so I'm happy to be back.
We just are tickled him to death that you're going to take our good friend's spot because he's getting ready to move up, you know.
I'm very excited about that.
Yes.
But you got big shoes to fill. One of the things that our current Attorney General has done is put up a good defense, but he's also put up a good offense. You planning on going after Obama?
Absolutely.
Yes.
I was very happy being in this Texas State Senate. For those of you who don't know, we have 31 senators in Texas. We represent almost 1 million people. And we almost have a 2/3 majority. We're hopefully going to be one short after Connie Burton wins her election.
Yeah, baby.
It takes 2/3 to pass anything. So with 10 other conservatives, I can block almost any legislation in the state. But when I looked at the landscape of Texas, every statewide office holder changing after over a decade of having fairly consistent leadership across the board. I didn't want to leave the Senate. I left because I knew that this was a critical time in our state, and that we were facing issues that if we didn't have the right people in statewide office in Texas right now,